On February 18, 2025, a significant meeting unfolded in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, reshaping the geopolitical landscape. Top diplomats from the United States and Russia convened in a display of diplomatic engagement. This high-level meeting signaled a potential thaw in the icy relations between the two superpowers. The backdrop of the ongoing Ukraine conflict added a layer of complexity and urgency to the talks. Leading the American delegation were Secretary of State Marco Rubio and National Security Advisor Mike Waltz. Their Russian counterpart, Sergei Lavrov, represented the Kremlin. The presence of Saudi officials, including Foreign Minister Prince Faisal bin Farhan Al Saud, underscored the kingdom's growing role as a diplomatic power broker. The talks in Riyadh marked a notable shift in US foreign policy under President Trump. The meeting aimed to address the strained relations between Washington and Moscow. The Ukraine conflict, coupled with years of escalating tensions, had brought the two nations to a diplomatic impasse. The Riyadh talks, therefore, represented a crucial step towards dialogue and de-escalation. The choice of Riyadh as the venue for these high-stakes talks was itself noteworthy. It underscored Saudi Arabia's growing influence on the world stage. The kingdom has carefully navigated the geopolitical complexities of the Ukraine conflict. It has maintained ties with both Russia and the West, positioning itself as a potential mediator. The Riyadh talks resulted in a concrete agreement to pursue three key objectives. First, both sides committed to restoring staffing at their respective embassies. The expulsion of diplomats in recent years had severely hampered communication channels. This measure aimed to rebuild basic diplomatic infrastructure. Second, the US and Russia agreed to establish a high-level team dedicated to supporting peace talks on Ukraine. This initiative signaled a joint commitment to finding a negotiated settlement to the conflict. The details of this team's mandate and composition remained to be determined. Third, both sides pledged to explore avenues for closer economic cooperation. This commitment reflected a recognition of the interconnectedness of the global economy. The potential for renewed economic ties could offer incentives for cooperation in other areas. However, the Riyadh agreements were not without their critics. The absence of Ukrainian representation at the talks raised concerns about the legitimacy and effectiveness of the proposed initiatives. The lack of European involvement also fueled anxieties about the potential for a separate US-Russia deal that could undermine Western unity. The absence of Ukrainian officials from the Riyadh talks sparked immediate reactions from Kyiv. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky expressed his disapproval. He argued that any negotiations concerning the future of Ukraine should include Ukrainian voices. Zelensky's stance highlighted the complexities of the situation. While the US and Russia sought common ground, Ukraine, the nation most directly affected by the conflict, felt sidelined. This sense of exclusion threatened to undermine the progress made in Riyadh. European allies also voiced concerns about the lack of transparency and consultation regarding the talks. They feared that the US and Russia might strike deals that did not serve European interests. The potential for a wedge between the US and its European allies loomed large. The absence of Ukrainian and European representation in Riyadh underscored the challenges of achieving a lasting peace in Ukraine. Any solution would require the buy-in of all stakeholders, including those most directly impacted by the conflict. The Riyadh talks, while significant, represented just one step on a long and arduous road towards resolving the Ukraine conflict and mending US-Russia relations. Significant obstacles remained, and the situation on the ground remained volatile. Despite the diplomatic efforts, fighting continued in Ukraine. Russian forces launched drone attacks, targeting civilian infrastructure and causing casualties. These attacks served as a stark reminder of the human cost of the conflict. They also underscored the urgency of finding a peaceful resolution. The potential for a Trump-Putin summit in the coming weeks offered a glimmer of hope. A face-to-face meeting between the two leaders could provide an opportunity to address the most contentious issues directly. However, the success of such a summit remained uncertain. The path ahead was fraught with challenges. The Riyadh talks, however, offered a glimmer of hope in a long and bitter conflict. Whether this fragile momentum could be sustained remained to be seen. The world watched with bated breath as the fate of Ukraine and the future of US-Russia relations hung in the balance.